We still do 7 NUFC Matters show a week for free. But if you want to help support NUFC Matters, then there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast and video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications bell so you don't miss a single show. If you want to help us financially, then you can join the channel using this button with the membership starting at $1.99 a month. Or you can drop us a donation in the chat using a super sticker. We're also looking for sponsors. If you'd like your brand advertised on the flyers for the show and featured during the ad break, then email John at nufcmatters.com to arrange today.
Attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again, but it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you if I don't say the words that make...
Good evening and welcome to NUFC Matters, the three amigos, the perfect way to kickstart your Newcastle United weekend and your perfect way to kickstart your Ryder Cup weekend. Those of you who are interested in golf, you know I am 6-1. It doesn't get any better than that on the first day. Well, it does. We could have gone 7-0, but we've got to give America something. But that has been an absolutely fantastic day of golf in Italy today. Europe completely dominating from start to finish, and long may that continue over the weekend. The Americans aren't going to give up. They showed that today, but some remarkable putting by the European team. And yeah, if you get a chance to watch the highlights tonight, if you've just got in from work, make sure you watch it. Absolutely fantastic. Okay, we're not here to talk about golf. We're here to talk about football. NUFC Matters, of course it does, and plenty to talk about as always. And we're making a habit of this. We're going to start talking about football to start with, not ticketing. So Mitch, Newcastle United against Manchester City in the Carabao Cup. It was funny because today inadvertently I caught a segment of our show at the start of last week's show, and I'd said next week we could be celebrating a Newcastle United win. My prediction was a 1-0 win for Newcastle against Manchester City. So we did it, and it was quite an interesting game. A tactical game. I enjoyed it from start to finish. I enjoyed the first half for what that was. Eddie Howe's team absorbing the pressure, defending as if their lives depended on it. A couple of changes in the second half, and Newcastle were on the front foot, still defending from the front, like all good teams do, and ultimately getting the goal. We should have had a goal before half-time. Jacob Murphy should have finished, but Isaac getting the goal after wonderful work by Joe Linton. What a performance, and what a win.
Absolutely. And pleased for everybody who came in. You've got the centre-back pairing. You've got the young'uns, Miley and Hall coming in. You've got Target completing 90 minutes in two different positions pretty much. And so I think there's a lot to take away from that, not just for that performance alone, but for how we'll look at that squad going forward over the season. As we grow as a squad, as we develop as a squad, I think that night and said a few things about squad depth as well, and hopefully people will start to be a bit more calm when we talk about players potentially missing or being rotated, because that showed we have got a lot more depth than perhaps some people thought. And also, fantastic 45 minutes under his belt for Miley. I thought he looked a little bit of a passenger for the first 20 minutes. And I thought, oddly, he was taken off at half-time just as he was coming into the game. But ticks a load of boxes for me. Can't doubt the passion and the effort and the concerted effort of everybody who turned out on the night. And yes, Man City made changes too, but Pep also brought people on and tried to match us once we changed things up. But the one thing they couldn't match was the energy and the effort.
Amazing effort, it has to be said, Steve, from Newcastle United that night, and a wonderful performance which sees us, head into the next round.
Yeah, as you say, defending from the front at times as well, Steve. It was a really, really good all-round performance. I thought what was interesting was that City had so much of the play in the first half, but they've just played it in front of us. They did try, but some great defending. They did try to break our lines on a couple of occasions, but they played the ball in front. And there's nothing better than a team that just wants to run across you constantly from left to right, right to left. I never thought I'd see a midfield of Tonali, Murphy and Miley played for Newcastle United at this stage of the season, to be perfectly honest. But you've got to give the lads credit who all came in, whether it was Matt Target, Dummett, Lascelles, Livramento, looked solid. The longer the game went on, the better Livramento looked. Young Hall, again, another wonderful prospect that we have there. It was interesting to see Eddie Howe shuffling things around. He when he moved Hall to left back and pushed Target further up front, then he moved Hall into the centre midfield just to shore it up a little bit and give Miley that little bit of support, because the three-man midfield did seem at times to be chasing shadows. But it just shows that we've done our homework, and that one criticism that I've often had and often mentioned on here about Eddie Howe's game management and changing things during a game, he showed that he's more than accomplished at doing it, and really, really good. Delighted with the result, obviously, and wasn't it a smashing goal by Isak? Great move, lovely goal. Really, really impressed.
Yeah, fantastic. George, great result for Newcastle. One which I don't think anybody saw coming when they saw the starting lineup.
Well, certainly the lineup surprised me. I mean, as you know, from start of last week, I was saying 1-0 to Newcastle, but had I seen that lineup before I'd said that, I might have hesitated a little bit. But for me, Eddie Howe came of age as a manager the other night, because he matched the tactics, he changed his tactics, and changed his team. Who would have thought that he would have changed it the way he did after our victory at the weekend? And it all worked. And it works because it's quite clear that the players that he brings in, the players he's got in the squad, believe in what the man's doing. I mean, that Jacob Murphy, that's not the Jacob Murphy we had when Bruce Ball was here. I mean, he's just a different player, and such a happy player as well. Miggy, as usual, ran his legs off when he got the opportunity. Young Miley, Neil's right. He was a bit lost when he went on, but a teenager in that crowd of players, in that sort of atmosphere, he's entitled to be a little bit out of it for a while. But as the game went on, he made his mark. He got some good balls in, good tackles in. No, there was so much positive about that, and the old hands that were on the pitch, Joe Linton and the others, just played their part and mixed it up. And then when Bruno and Gordon came on at half time, it was like a different team, not two substitutes. It was like a different team. And Anthony Gordon, for me, right up to the last second, was chasing every ball down. Manchester City never got a piece at all from him. He was at them. Somebody described him like a nasty wasp who never leaves you alone. Well, that's exactly what he was like. He was absolutely brilliant. And Bruno picked up where he left up on Saturday, did all the hard stuff, but then started to play his football. And we're Italian stallion. Well, when he gets his chance, he's going to take it, and I love that. No, there's so much about that. The other young'uns that came on, the Livramento, wow, I can understand why we waited for him and why we paid what we paid for him. He's going to be a star. So is Hall. I mean, all of that was positive on top of beating the league champions, the European champions. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that for them. I think that'll give the whole squad a confidence boost, so that we've now got a squad that believes in Newcastle United, believes in Eddie Howe. And I look forward to seeing what they do to other teams.
Yeah, me too. Before we move on, I just want to say well done to NUFC Geordie. He won the Food Bank T-shirt from last week, which is a signed Rob Lee T-shirt. The reason I'm doing it as early as I'm doing it is we've got a new T-shirt up for grabs. I'd like to try and sell this tonight, guys, because it's a worthwhile cause. I've stuck it on my Twitter at Steve Wraith. Get yourself on there now. I've pinned it to the top. But it is a tree at the Sycamore Gap, which I think everybody in the Northeast and those connected with the Northeast were devastated to see that there'd been some mindless vandalism which had cut that tree down. Something which is synonymous with our area. I saw a lot of people saying that it was similar to the Tyne Bridge being attacked or the Angel of the North, and I've got to agree. It'll never be the same again. That area of Northumbria, and it's disappointing to see. It's synonymous with many films. People have proposed there. People have gone up there, and it's just mindless vandalism. And I hope that whoever's done it, gets caught and given the appropriate sentence. But we are fundraising. There is a fundraiser going out already. I've noticed somebody's already set it up on Just Given. We've copied the link. We're stuck it on our Twitter, and we're giving that T-shirt up for grabs. So place the bid like you normally do, and we will donate whatever money's raised to that particular cause. So thanks to John, as always, for knocking up that T-shirt. But get bidding on that tonight. It would be nice to get even just 100 quid, 150 quid. It would be nice just so NUFC Matters can do their bit and donate something. But let's get back to football. Go on, George. Did you want to say something about that?
I'm just going to say that the description of it being like attacking the Tyne Bridge and the Angel of the North, it's worse than that. You can paint the Tyne Bridge. You can paint the Angel of the North. The tree's gone. It's going to be firewood soon, and that's irreplaceable. Never mind. Sorry.
No. Good point. Well made. So, Mitch, I'm not going to go through this week without mentioning the 8-0 because that really is Newcastle United proven beyond all reasonable doubt that the Champions League games, and Newcastle's reaction to the Champions League game and that additional travelling certainly didn't affect Newcastle last week. And again, they rotated the squad, which is what all good teams have to do, and they came up with a recipe. And I think what really impressed me last weekend was that usually in a game like that, where you find yourself 3-4-0 up at half time, you come out the second half, and I think we all say it's never the same. The second half's never the same. A team fails to find that momentum. But Newcastle did the opposite. They found extra momentum, scored more goals in the second half, and almost grabbed themselves the goal scoring record in the Premier League, but had to suffice with a different record, 8 different goal scorers in the game. So fantastic, really, a great performance, and one which we'll have to mention tonight.
Absolutely, and it shows a mindset change, and it's something I keep talking about us as a club as a whole needing a mindset change. That was ruthless. That at the end of that game could have been anything we wanted it to be, I think. Yes, I think Sheffield United, once it got to 5, probably the white flag came out a little bit on their part. But you've still got to put it away. You've still got to work at it. You've still got to, make the chances and take the chances. And it's that mindset, that relentlessness, that wish to keep going, getting more goals. Because everybody knows there's going to be rotation, there's going to be times in the team and out the team. And nobody wants to be out of this team. Everybody wants to be in it. And I think it's sort of almost the perfect storm, really. I'd be very interested to see how Burnley do at the weekend, because they come up with Sheffield United, and both of those teams were pretty much head and shoulders above everybody else in the Championship last season. And I'm sorry, we've just totally dismantled Sheffield United. There's no other way to put it. And I think that, like I say, the key part is a change in mindset that says, right, it's time to be ruthless. We won't take the foot off the gas. We will just keep coming at you. We want more goals. We want more performance. We want to fight to keep a clean sheet. And we did all of that. And I thought that it was Was it the complete performance? No, possibly not. I think that we could still find 2 or 3 things that could have been done better, and that's mental. Coming off of an 8-0 win. But it's quite, it could have been double figures quite easily, and I don't think that would have been an unfair reflection of the game.
Definitely not. And ultimately, Steve, what we heard, from Eddie Howe was exactly what Neil said, that, 8-0, yeah, but there were things we could have improved. And it's great to hear that on an 8-0, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's interesting because I thought we didn't get out of third gear. And I thought for the first 20 minutes, we didn't even start. And I think that's probably the aspect that Eddie's talking about. But what impressed me was you go in, 3-0 up at half time. And normally a team away from home 3-0 shuts up shop. We went the opposite. I mean, they imploded. There's no question about that. But let's not take anything away from our finishing. In the second half, I mean, we could have had a couple more, as Mitch says, but it shows the confidence was there, the team spirit was there, the morale is obviously sky high now, and I think we talked about it for the last couple of weeks, and certainly last week when we said after the Milan game, we felt as though perhaps the previous results that we'd had, even though they were against top class opposition, there was a little bit of an edge. There was a little bit of watching what was going on, a little bit of concern. We had a big European game coming up, the first time for 20 years, so the pressure was on. And I think what we actually saw was that unwinding of that pressure. The game's finished now, the Milan game, and all of a sudden the team is playing the way that the team knows it can play. And that makes next week's game, which I'm sure we'll talk about later on, even more interesting to contemplate. But fantastic performance and great goals, great teamwork. Let's see what happens tomorrow. You're right, Mitch, because we, again, like you say, we're playing a team that came up with Sheffield United. So exciting times as always with Newcastle, especially on a Friday.
8-0, George. I never thought I'd see the like, after Ashley, but no. This manager, this team, they are special, and they're not far away from a trophy, I don't think. And once that trophy is secured, I think Eddie Howe, I hate to say it, but he does jump above the likes of Sir Bobby and Kevin Keegan in the list of great managers at Newcastle because of what he's done. And I think he's almost above Keegan now. I never thought I would see the day, but with what he's done, keeping Newcastle up, and then getting him into fourth, getting them into Champions League, he just needs that trophy. He just needs that trophy.
Well, that's right. And I think, as I said the other night, if that's a team that's playing with a European hangover, let's have some more.
Yeah,
because that's what all the national press were saying about, criticising Eddie about how late we were going, and made it worse because we had the delay because of the weather, and how we didn't play on the pitch and all that sort of stuff. I mean, the national press really didn't give us much chance. In fact, I think they were desperate to see we lose badly. Well, we didn't lose badly, and we came back stronger, not weaker. So if Sheffield United had visions of facing a team that was leg weary for travelling and all that sort of thing, what a shock they must have got. And the other thing about Sheffield is that it's only in the last 2 weeks that they held Tottenham right to the last minute before Tottenham could get a winner. Then they held Manchester City almost to the last minute before they got a winner. And the defending was outstanding. It just wasn't good. It was outstanding. Well, same players on the pitch against us, so they didn't have a look in. 8 goals, and you couldn't say there was a bad one amongst them. From a football point of view, usually if you see 8 goals, come on, you're going to see one going off somebody's backside or off somebody's heel or off the back of somebody's head because it was an accident more than by design. Not those 8. They were all carefully crafted, beautifully designed goals, which you could have enjoyed in any match. And Sheffield United just were on the receiving end, and I do wonder who else will get on the receiving end of that, because it's clear now once this group of lads get going, they're hard to stop, and they keep going. And again, the players that stand out. Well, they all stood out in that match. It was just incredible how well they all played, and let's see more of it. And that confidence must be sky high now. And yes, I do fear for Burnley on Saturday. I hope to make it my return game for St James's Park. But I'm looking forward to what might happen on Saturday. Could be amazing. Could be amazing.
Yeah,
there's a question there, Steve. There's a question came up. I just thought, what was that contraption used for the cup draw? I can answer that straight away. It was Don Goodman.
Yes, very good. Well, I mean, let's go on. We'll come to the cup draw because it was, it was Manchester United away. You know, it could have been Liverpool away. That's the way I look at it. I would tend not to fare well at Anfield. It could have been Arsenal away. I think Manchester United's a winnable game away from home, Mitch. But it was put to Eddie Howe at the press conference. Have you always had this kind of luck with cup draws? Of course, PSG. Dortmund, Milan, and Man City, Manchester United. I mean, I guess if you're going to win the trophies, Mitch, you've got to beat the big teams.
You beat them when you come across them. It's exactly it. It's what everybody else who wins a trophy does. I do think Man United is that their 17th home draw in a row in cup competitions. I'd love to know what the statistical odds of that happening are, because I hate looking for conspiracy theories. I hate questioning things. I hate questioning the absolute validity of any competition. But 17 home draws in a row? And then you add the mess of us being the wrong ball in the previous round? I don't know. But yeah, you've just got to take it as you find it, is what it is. I think when it comes to cup draws, if Eddie Barrow fell in a barrel of tits, he'd come out sucking his thumb, wouldn't he? It's sort of one of those things. We just deal with it, and we've just beat Man City. We can go anywhere. We can do anything. We don't have to fear anyone. Whoever's the worst team in the competition left in the competition, drawn at home, would have been a little bit better. But I've seen we screw those draws up before. I've seen we nailed on to win home quarter-finals and thinking, Wembley, yeah, get in. And then, we lose on penalties to Peterborough. We've been there, done it and got the T-shirt over the years, and that's about changing our mindset. Changing our mindset that we can go anywhere, beat anyone, because that's what you've got to do to be winners.
Steve?
You know what? Old Trafford isn't the fortress it used to be. Let's face it. And this Manchester United team is not the Manchester United team of Alex Ferguson. It's barely even the Manchester United team of David Moyes, to be perfectly honest. And it's not nowhere near as good as the team that Van Gaal had. And when you roll all of that up together and the injuries that they've got, or that they keep telling you that they've got, and the attitude, obviously mental attitude that they have within the dressing room as well, because there's some of the things that have come out over the last few months just says that it's a club rotten to the core, from top to bottom, from within the dressing room and outside the dressing room. And again, the treatment that Ten Hag is putting out to the young lad is crazy, absolutely crazy. I was talking to a Dortmund fan yesterday about Man United and about how foreign people still look, foreign supporters still look at Manchester United as like the top team, and Liverpool as the top team in the UK. Especially Dortmund, a Dortmund fan who was rather flippant towards Man City, but I think that's a German thing. I think they just don't like the whole aspect of the way that Man City are run. But interestingly, knew nothing about Newcastle, knew nothing about the fact that we're run by Arabs, all of that type of thing, and it's coming over for the game in a couple of weeks' time, and very, very much wrapped up in their own club and in their own little world. And there is an idolization there of Jurgen Klopp in Germany still, especially among Dortmund fans. because they see him as someone that they almost worship still. But getting back to Man United, a club in crisis, no reason why we can't go there and do something. We said we were getting revenge on them after the League Cup final when we played them a couple of weeks later and turned them over. And you know what? I think we're playing better football now than we were then, to be perfectly honest. Certainly if the last 2 or 3 games are anything to go by. So I'm sure we'll look forward to it. The only downside, of course, for those who are travelling is that it's an 8:15 kickoff. Where does that come from? Where's that come from? 8:15, not 7:15 or 7:45 or even 8 o'clock. 8:15. Absolutely no chance of catching trains home from Manchester at that time. Again, football fans getting it in the neck, getting kicked in the teeth. It's just contempt. I noticed the FSA making representation already about various things, and that's one of them. And it's not just us, by the way. I mean, it's not just a gripe about Newcastle United. It's a gripe that a lot of fans are having right across the country who are affected with ridiculous kickoff times. But there's a derby game, I think, on that day, a London derby, and I think they're kicking off at 7:30, and we have to kick off at 8:15. You know, away from home. They're going to travel 20 miles between them. Fans are just held in contempt, Steve.
Oh, yeah, certainly are. George, Manchester United away in the Cup, then a lot of people are saying the draws are fixed. But look, you're in the draw. That's the main thing. And if you're going to do this, you got to do it properly. And what bigger motivation to get through to the quarterfinals than to beat the team that beat us in the final?
Well, you said it. If you're going to win it, you've got to beat whoever's put in front of you, and that's what we've got to do. As regards the draw being fixed, well, Neil's statistics are interesting. I'd be looking for the office in that building where there's a fridge in a box that goes in the freezer part that says Manchester United, because honestly, it can't. Yeah, it can be a coincidence, but no, it can't really, can it? Anyway, I mean, the statistical thing's an interesting one because the randomness thing is there, isn't it? It can get a lot and you can get small, and that's all about being random. But nah, it stinks rather, I'm afraid. And after what's happening in Spain at the moment, you think conspiracy theories aren't there? Wow, the Spanish FA in Barcelona are in a bit of trouble, I think. Never mind, that's another issue. But at the end of the day, you've got to be too stuck in front of you. It didn't matter who they're from and who they are. And at the moment, you lads are right. We can the way we're playing at the moment, in the feeling in the squad, we could beat anybody at the moment. I'm quite certain of it. If they get the right start and the right preparation, as Eddie Howe's good at doing, we could beat whoever they stick in front of. When if it's Manchester United at Old Trafford, well, fine, that's how it is. But it means we'll get to Wembley. If we get to Wembley, it'll be done very honestly and straightforward. There'll be no look about it at all. We'll have really won our way there, and that's the best way to do it, I think.
When we get to Wembley, 100%. Barry's asking a question. He says, Steve, loved Kev's go at the quiz. When did the results come out? When they finish, we've got 2 more to go, mate. 2 more to go. One will be next week, I think, and one will be the week after. And then the big reveal of who won the quiz will be revealed. And there is a trophy. It's a rather nice trophy that John has donated. So looking forward to that. Anyway, on to our first segment of the show. It is Tweet of the Week. Now, I've culled these tweets this week because there's so many of them. Here's a stool sample. Thanks for that. This was brilliant. Watkins scores for Chelsea. Domino's Pizza went, we've delivered about 852,609 pizzas since Chelsea last scored a goal.
That's class, man.
There's a lot of these coming out as well. You'll notice Eddie Howe and Jason Tyndall handed notes to players when with substitutes when they go onto the pitch. This one, Sunderland got beat off Cardiff 1-0. And this one, and Yeah, it basically just got Paul Dummett and I love you. So that's Mad Dog's notes. I'm sure that'll end up becoming a regular feature. Ian Hull, thank you. When they take away your ability to lick your own genitals, it's staggering how much free time there is in the day, says this dog to another. I don't know where he gets them from. My wife told me that women are better at multitasking than men, so I told her to sit down and shut up. She couldn't do either. Classic. My missus gave me £60 and told me to go out and get something that makes her look sexy. You should have seen her face when I came home drunk. And anyone know what kind of bike that is in the background? George leaning forward. Just £3 will buy water and food for a family in Somalia. But don't let your heart rule your head, as they are doing Stella for £2.99, lads.
I was leaning forward because I couldn't even see the bloody bike.
All right. Thanks for this, NUFC. Jody says, thought you and the three amigos may get a laugh at this. In loving memory of Harry Fiddler, also his wife, Fanny. That is an actual headstone, by the way, guys. Sober October. Yes, Mitch, this one's for you, I think, and Stu. After this year, I'm on a bender till December. Classic. And here's someone that's very well known to Mitch. For sale, 90s iconic Sooty and Sweet puppets. Any offer accepted? I just want them off my hands. Thanks, T. Boom. That's Basil Brush. Paul, thanks for this. Do you think you can come on Saturday? I know you enjoy your weekends, but I need you here, said the boss. Me, yeah, no problem. I'll probably be late, though, as public transport on weekends is slow. Boss, what time will you get here? Me, Monday. Hey! That's by the way, in the Ryder Cup, we've just tied the final hole. So that's another half point for Europe. 6.5, 1.5 is how it finishes today. Brilliant stuff. The next James Bond will be made to satisfy the woke brigade. Bond will start off as a man and will transgender to a woman. The film will be called... Yes, you guessed it.
Oh, cocknut pussy. Oh,
yeah.
Dear me.
Thanks, Paul. And this one, I knew signing up for Ancestry was a bad idea. Ian, that's class. It's not tweet of the week, but it is class. We had a few Sheffield United ones, which I didn't squeeze in on Monday. Are Sheffield United playing this game through IPTV? Every tackle made is so late. It's ridiculous, said Rob.
That's brilliant, that.
It was good. It was good. When you misunderstood customers' request for a 69th birthday cake.
Oh, dear.
Oh, dear.
And autumn as a child conquers Halloween, leaves turning magical colours, comfort dinners, bonfire night. Autumn as an adult, fighting over the central heating, having conversations with people who can't believe how dark it's getting, and telling the Christmas Island supermarkets to F off. Yeah, I can tick all those boxes, lads. Dill's Pizza. This is funny. Wouldn't that be a dildo?
Oh,
said the Gherkins.
Oh.
Couple of more Sheffield United ones here. Get in, Sven. I love that, Lee. Very subtle. Only people of a certain vintage would know what on earth you were on about. And calling you Mrs. Sheffield United because she kicks off every 5 minutes.
Brilliant.
This was good as well. I know they conceded a couple, but I thought Sheffield were the better team. They played some lovely stuff, says Alex Ferguson.
Yeah, he would.
And Nathan Hemmingham. Regarding the lady pictured reading a book during game yesterday, she comes every week with her blind husband and his guide dog. They pick up blind commentary's headset and he listens to the game. She has no interest in the match and reads during it. Vic says, where's her husband then? Empty seats either side. Martin says, I think he was playing centre half for Sheffield United.
Oh, dear me.
Good first day of my diet, trying the new Sheffield United diet. Ate nothing.
Oh, very good.
And Frosty gets caught picking his nose.
Oh.
Thanks, Ian. Ever wondered what happened to Knight Rider's kit? Well, telling hard times, he developed a meth habit. He moved to Florida and is living with a stripper named Sky in a trailer court. Jimmy Moore, is that your trailer court? So what's this full English thing you want me to be part of, says Piglet. And a picture here for you, lads. If you don't see a sandal, you need serious help.
Definitely.
My wife said she's leaving me because I exaggerate too much. I was so shocked I almost tripped over my
Oh, dear me.
Correct. And if your dad wore shoes like this, says Jimmy, when you were growing up, you've got siblings you've never met.
They're Tuxedo Junction shoes, them.
You know, I like a sing-song, lads. I've just been blocked by Gary Barlow. Whatever I did, whatever I said, I didn't mean it. And I've recently changed my name to Steppenwolf. I was born to be wild. And one that we're all familiar with. Hey, guys, any idea on how to end Hey Jude, said Paul McCartney. Na, 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 Geordies. What's your weakness, says the boss. I trust people easily. You're hired. Thank you, sir. I was joking.
Very good.
And this one, I don't care if Monday's blue, Tuesday's grey, and Wednesday too. Thursday, I don't care about you. It's Friday. I'm in love. Very good. I like what they did there, Ian. It's an actual shop there. And tweet of the week from Andrew. He says, my brother's tattoo didn't turn out so good.
Oof.
Wow. That is terrible, by the way. You want your money back. Sad to see one of our 80s heroes living on the streets.
Oh.
And this is from one of the lads who I got the match with. He sent a message to a man called Tickasagram on Facebook, and he said, one of them till Friday, mate. Oh my God. Okay, we're down to the top three. You on your holidays? Aye, it's my week off.
Oh.
That's number 3.
Week off. Oh dear.
Number 2, vagina tandoori, Indian cuisine. It was actually called Najina tandoori. The one leg fell off.
Yeah, man.
Just go in and out of there. And the winner this week was that one, actually, because the next one is a lookalike, which I've mistakenly put in. But that one is the winner. I thought it was very good. So thanks for all your tweets, Zara. Thank you. Thank you to Jimmy. Thanks to all the lads, Stephen Kennedy, there's Ian Edgar, too many to mention. But all of you guys who've sent them in. David Cook sent a couple as well, I think. But thanks to everybody for sending them. Keep them coming. And the funnier, the better. They'll feature on Tweet of the Week. Okay, then. There's lots of questions coming in, so let's have a look and see what we can do. Benny, I'll go with this. Anybody else slightly concerned about the way that Tonali only trots back when he gives the ball away? I'm not saying he's not an excellent player, but that's why Longstaff's got the starting shirt, in my opinion. Interesting, Tonali. He came in, he got in, Mitch, at the start of the season, which was quite strange because most players have had to adjust and come in. When we said because he had the preseason and he's got in into the team straight away, that was probably the reason. I mean, Barnes didn't get in; he was slightly later starter than Tonali, of course. I don't think there's an issue with Tonali. I just think we've got to get used to the fact that he's an Italian playing in the Premier League. He's going to have to adapt. Eddie Howe keeps saying that some players take a bit longer to settle, especially those coming from another league, from a foreign country. I think Eddie's got it right. And I was quite impressed with Tonali the other night. And I just think it's because he is very laid back, cool, calm, and collected. He gave the ball away a couple of times. I think that's him just having to get used to the game and used to his teammates. But overall, we've got a gem there.
I think there's a very top quality player there that we've got who we will be talking about as hundreds of millions of pounds as a player in the not too distant future. Is he adjusting to a new league and a new tempo? Probably. He's also getting to know his teammates, getting to know the team. He also does seem like he's a little bit of a complicated individual. And you go back to this, some need a kick and some need a cuddle, and I think he's one who needs lots of cuddles. I think him being restricted from the starting lineup, I'm wondering if Eddie's looked at it and thought that might actually hurt him mentally. So let's get him in and see if he can hit the ground running, because then the next breath he's saying, well, yeah, he's not really trained properly for 4 weeks, and you're thinking, well, hang on a minute. you know, that's not, doesn't seem like Eddie's normal style, what he's done with any player that he's dropped in from brand new. I think you trust the manager and his decisions, and he must be saying what he's happy with. He does have a languid style, and some players do sometimes look terribly lazy when they're not. So I'm prepared to give him plenty of time to adjust and settle in. I think we're going to see a hell of a lot more of him. I think he's going to be essential in some of the European games. I think he'll be a difference maker in some of those games. And I think, well, if this is him at 80%, what the hell's the next 20% going to bring?
Yeah, Steve, I've got to be honest, you know, I was surprised to see him start the season, especially the way Anderson had played pre-season. But after the Villa game, I was saying, well, who am I to question Eddie Howe? There has been a few, you know, ups and downs for him, and it comes because he hasn't really trained a great deal. But I think we've got a proper baller there, like, and he's going to be part of our squad for a while. I think he is just settling in, as John says there. People had a go at Isaac Gordon after a few games. Give them a chance to settle. Eddie and his team doing a top job with signings. I've got to agree.
Yeah, he'll either be here for years and years to come, or he'll be gone by January. That's the nature of the way things are at the moment. What we've got to remember is, first of all, he was signed. He's a defensive midfielder. He's a central defensive midfielder primarily. Everybody said when he signed that he had that style of Alexander Pirlo, didn't he? So you look at Pirlo, there was a man who wasn't exactly gifted with pace, but could cruise through a game, look so majestic. So when you've got an Italian who's been compared to that, who really is, as I say, a defensive midfielder, he's one of these players who likes to start an attack off with 20, 30, 40 odd passes. Our style of football at the moment is far quicker than anything you'd see in Italy. I think we saw that with Milan. I mean, we defended to the hilt, but when we did attack, it was like they couldn't understand what we're up about. It's one of those things. I think with him, I think he is even. He had all of the summer away with the Italian under-21s at the international. We had the signing immediately after that. He then went back to Italy. He then had a bit of a holiday. He then came over. He didn't. I don't think. Did he play in America? He might have come on and had a bit of a run around, but I don't think that he did that much. A scintillating start against Villa, but after that, like you say, it's tended to drift off a little bit. I just don't think the lad fit. He took that nasty knock and he was out injured. But then I think he's one of these players. Eddie's going to have to find a style for him. He's going to have to adjust his style, and maybe he's not playing so far on the right hand side. Maybe he is more a central midfielder. We've talked about how Bruno. I mean, only a couple of weeks ago, everybody was having a pop at him, and yet look at the way he's bounced back. There's no question in my mind Tonali will be exactly the same. And once those two strike up the rapport that probably some hard work on the training pitch will help to develop, I think we could end up with two wonderful midfielders. And I like his style. And I thought he when he against City, I thought he pushed it a little bit too much. I thought he was trying to find that threading through ball, but at times the way that City were moving in front of him, there was always a player there to cut it out, and he was trying what would have, if there came off, been some wonderful passes that would have broken their line. All we've got to be as fans is a little bit more patient. I did hear people getting on his back. I did hear the odd moan about him and why did he try to play a ball like that? And like that comment that we had about trotting back and not picking up the pace. I think it's just one of those things that he's going to learn, and he's going to develop his own game. And if you're going to have him playing, and you've got, we're going to have Trippier, and then we've also the possibility of Livramento playing behind him, and he's tucked in on the inside right of a three-man midfield, then he'll start to work off them as well, and he'll start to feed him the ball. Excuse me, and feed him the ball in the right places. So I'm not that unduly concerned, but it's just great to have a squad where, you know, if he's not producing the goods, then you're going to have an Anderson who can come in, who is, I think everybody's agreed has turned into the makings of a really fine midfielder. And then you've got Gordon, who's all over the place in front of him, and shown again what hard work in the summer, and also confidence. Remember, Tonali playing for the under-21s, they got knocked out very early. Gordon goes and ends up being almost the star of the competition, and we win the thing as well, you know. So that was his fitness coming in, and now we're getting the reward for it. So there's a lot of things going on. But I mean, people say some foreign players, when they sign for a club, need a good 6 months to bed in. Maybe Tonali's just one of those.
George, it's right what somebody said there earlier. You know, we didn't give an opportunity to, you know, to Gordon. Some people didn't get an opportunity to the likes of Gordon and Isaac when they came in. It does take time to get used to Eddie Howe's training methods and to get used to the high intensity press that Eddie Howe plays, I guess, and getting to that level. Gordon admitted it. He struggled when he first came, but I think Tonali will be the same. Plus, he has the language barrier to cope with and settling in a new country.
Yeah, that's a poor excuse though. No, I'd watch them, and there's some players who have a vision of a game, what's going on around them, and they know when to run back at 100 miles an hour, and they know when they can get away with running back at 10 miles an hour. And I think that's what you're seeing. You're seeing a player that has a big vision of the game and where he is, and he adapts his style to that. He plays in the mood of the game, in my view. He's going to be a brilliant player for us. You know, already shown signs, and he doesn't particularly worry me. I can't wait till he's at peak, and as Neil says, if that's 80%, let's see what 90 or 100% is like. So he doesn't worry me. In fact, if people think that he was sort of trotting back rather than racing back, my view of that is that he has a vision of where he wants to go. If he needs to go at 100 miles an hour, he'll go at 100 miles an hour. If he doesn't, he won't. He'll choose his moments, I think, like all good players, really good players. And I think he's going to be a star for us in the future. He's going to. I think by the end of the season, he'll be pushing Bruno for being player of the season. He's got that quality. The signs are there, and Steve's right. I mean, he tried some fantastic balls that didn't quite come off. Had they done, we would have been talking about them for forever. So I'm not worried about Tonali. I think the lad will bring it forward, and he's already mixing in well with the group. I mean, he's not an outsider, is he? You know, the language barrier or not. You can see no difference between how they treat him and how he treats them, and same with the coach and staff. Just simply because his English isn't very good. His English will improve. He's probably speaking more Geordie than English at the moment, but yeah, it doesn't worry me. I'm looking forward to see what he produces in the season ahead.
Ian's wanting to know if you're DJing down the quayside tonight, George, with your headphones.
Definitely. I've got a gig in the piano and pitcher later on.
Tom Dixon, have a good holiday, mate. He's in Kos in Greece. When he said he was hot, I thought he mustn't be in the Costa del Gateshead. So he's in Kos. Have a good time, Tom, and get well. You know, I've just seen you're not having too good a time with your health. So get well, mate, and keep on keeping on. That's what you've got to do. Lots of questions coming in. Lots of stuff to get through on the show as well. Which direction do we go in next? Oh yes, let's talk about somebody who, for me, is fairly irrelevant as far as Newcastle United fans are concerned, and it's somebody who's just trying to get a bit of PR for his new book that's coming out. Bob Murray, Mitch, which T-Tank has said. Former Sunderland owner Bob Murray said Newcastle United's lost its soul after selling out to Saudi Arabia. You couldn't make it up. And JB says, Bob Murray talking about us losing our soul, but no mention for the Mackem Seagull that lost its virginity. I mean, to be honest, Bob Murray's got a book coming out. I presume a journalist has written it. And once again, Newcastle United are being attacked because of the fact that we've got Saudi ownership. But I mean, we've got to get used to this. We keep saying that on this show. We need to mention it because I think it's relevant. But, why is Bob Murray weighing in? I can understand a Newcastle fan who doesn't agree with the takeover, but Bob Murray, Why
Bob, one more seat, Murray.
But one more seat, Murray, exactly.
Look, there's three things on my mind about this today, so you might have to bear with us and buckle up.
Okay, I'm going to go for a lie down.
The first thing is, it's a lazy story, which is nothing more than an advertorial because he's got a book and a series of talk shows that he's got organised that he wants to sell tickets for. Disappointed in Simon Bird writing it that way, but I also understand, like many Newcastle United fans of a left-wing leaning, there's a degree of conflict or even guilt about the Saudi takeover where they feel like they've got to mention these things, the same tired old things, over and over and over again. It's cheap. It's tiresome now. Come up with some new stuff. Get some new material, because it's just being regurgitated, and in this case, regurgitated to sell some copy for Sir Bob Murray. Sir Bob Murray, who's someone both me and my dad have, was sat and had dinner with him and broken bread with him, for God's sakes. For him then to come out and talk about morality in football, like I've said many times, if you're looking for somewhere to preach about morality, I would suggest very strongly football's the last place you should look. The absolute last place you should look. Where was his morality when Ashley was running Newcastle United into the ground? Where was his morality tales when Short was doing the same to Sunderland? And it's all very well and good for him to come out with stuff saying like, well, I sold it to Niall Quinn and I had a clause in the contract that they would never play in green. What? Like that's something supposed to do with the fact that we've played in green. Tiresome, really tiresome, and non-story, means nothing. So where was all your morality when things were going on at Sunderland? Where was your morality when you always was covering up for one of your players? And everybody in football knew what he'd done. And everybody at the club knew what he'd done, and you still went ahead and did it to try and save your Premier League necks. Where was your morality then, Sir Bob? Or were you dancing in the boardroom celebrating, staying up with them? Good question, I think, and I don't think you'll ever answer it. And I think there's a wider thing at play here. And the wider thing is when he says about selling your soul. The football soul will never go to somewhere like Riyadh and die. I tell you where it's going. It's going across the pond. It's going across to the various American companies that are investing in football clubs and wanting to change our game forever for their own financial benefit. Chelsea running roughshod through FFP, having a sponsor approved whose annual turnover is less than the amount they're sponsoring the shirt for. Yet that seems to be okay. Related company, fine. Market value, yeah, it's all right. Different for us. 777 looking at buying Everton. Like, and a good friend of mine who was an Everton fan over here said, we've gone from being Usmanov's money laundering project to being owned by an American coke dealer. And how much worse can it get? I think it can get a lot worse, mate. And it's coming. And we've talked about Burnley and Sheffield United being promoted from the Championship last season, both of whom struggled financially, and both of whom were under financial restrictions and transfer embargoes for a good chunk of the season while they were winning the league. And the COVID implications of football, the financial implications, are just catching up now. And the AFL need to bear some responsibility. You look what's happening at Southend at the minute. You look at what's happening at Reading at the minute. About to be relegated yet again. 4 points already deducted. They'll be deducted more this season, I promise you. They're running 193% of wage to turnover. And if they want to do any transfer business, they've got to have special written permission from the Football League. The Football League who helped them into that position. You've got to look at what's going on at Scunthorpe, who've released a statement saying they're going to ground share with the team, and the team's going to have got no idea what they're talking about. Who added 6 people to their board 62 days ago and removed them again yesterday. What's going on there? Money laundering. It's a shambles. Where the football soul is currently dying is in investment banks in New York And everywhere the Football League allows someone to take over a club without doing a fit and proper person test, that isn't fit and proper. Oh, and Liverpool, they're delighted with their new investment. That means they don't have to borrow off the banks. A sports investment firm, let's go and have a look at them and see who they are. They've got a full portfolio of a long track record of investing in sports worldwide. No, they haven't. This is their first investment. They're a brand new company, sprung out of nowhere from people associated with sports media in the US. What are they going to be after? Broadcasting rights, that's what they're going to be after. And meanwhile, the soul of football, we're being told, is going to die because of we're being owned by Saudi Arabia. It won't die in Riyadh. It's dying right in front of you, all over the country and in the US.
Steve, it's something we've talked about before. It's the same old story, just a different narrative, you know, a different reason for discussing it on the show tonight. But our message will never change. I think we've always been very level-headed on this. You know, we're always willing to have a conversation with people about this. But, you know, for me, this one is just another in a long line.
Yeah, what is it with Bob Murray that he doesn't like the colour green? He claims that he put into the contract when the Drummondville Consortium and Niall Quinn bought the club that there was a clause in there that said they couldn't change the club strip to green. He made a pop at young lads and lasses running around Newcastle in what is a green football top, because apparently that's the colour of Saudi Arabia. Last season we had a white football top with green trim. We've had green before. We had a green and blue shirt. You know, we had the Greenall's green. That was all right. You were around then, Bob. You never complained about it then. What's the sudden gripe about the colour green? Fascinating. But you know that anyone who's been to the Stadium Light will know that the ghost of Bob Murray lurks in every corner of that ground, in every corridor. You know, he's 80-odd-year-old now, and he built the club. Let's face it, he built the ground. But he also, in his book, he's had some interesting remarks made towards Sir John Hall and the lack of friendship that there was there. The lack of any camaraderie or etiquette, I think was the word he used, from the Shepherds. Well, I think there was probably Newcastle fans that also felt sometimes there was very little etiquette with the Shepherds, but that's probably for another day and another story. We'll probably now get the column filled in with people making comments about Freddie. But no, I mean, he's obviously, it's a way of selling the book. It's a way of a Northeast journalist getting it onto the front page for him or the back page. They're doing it, and the claim will come that, well, all the proceeds of the book are going to the Foundation of Light, which is obviously their equivalent of our foundation here at Newcastle. That's all well and good, but don't build it up on the back of your nearest rivals. Give the Sunderland fans an explanation of why you sold the football club. Give an explanation of what's gone on, what it was like running a football club, all of that type of thing. What your opinion is now. You know, dig deep into Ellis Short. Tell us where Ellis Short got his money from. Tell us all about the African Foundation that Ellis Short had. All of those things that you'll know about Bob. You know, let's dig into that. You know, if you want to talk about etiquette, or if you want to talk about morality, let's get into that aspect of Sunderland, and ownership and sponsors and various other things. You know, let's talk about the money that they got for Gian when they sold him to Saudi Arabia. You know, I don't think he complained about the money then that Sunderland picked up.
It was over here, actually, mate. It was Alien.
Yes, exactly. What do we know about that football club, Mitch? Well, we know that people are now flocking to it in droves. But no, I mean, this is riding on the back of Newcastle to sell a book and to sell it to Sunderland fans because it ingratiates themselves to them and it gives us something to grate about. And you know what, Bob, carry on, but be honest with your supporters. Be honest with the supporters of Sunderland Football Club and give them proper stories. Give them proper stories about their own football club. Give them the tales from the dark room of when you bought the football club and how you managed it. Go into that, but don't go into talking about your nearest rivals. There's no need. There's absolutely no need.
George, Bob Murray. I mean, I'd struggle to think of what his book's going to be like, to be honest. I mean, it's strange. I've published football books. I published Pavel's. I published Lee Clark's. You only play to a certain audience. You've got to have had a really good career in football, played at numerous clubs, and played maybe as well at international level to have a bestseller. I think Chairman bringing a book out is something you rarely hear about. I'm not sure what kind of market it's going to appeal to, because like owners, they split fans' opinions, and I guess there'll be some Sunderland fans who can't stand Bob Murray, and there'll be some fans who like him. So I'm not 100% sure why he's bringing a book out. I mean, why do people bring books out? To leave a legacy, to make money? Yeah, but I'm not sure whether this is a great idea. And maybe just attacking Newcastle is trying to get extra sales on Wearyside.
Yeah, he'll sell 12 copies instead of 6 because he did that. That's about it. Yeah, Bob Murray. Neil's right. It was the period of my life when I did some promotional work for a building society who sponsored our friends down the road. And quite often when we're in with the sponsors, we used to be in the director's box and all the rest of it. Bob Murray was always a miserable sod. I mean, you couldn't get a smile out of him, whether they won or they lost. He really was. So none of that surprises me. But to take it to morality and link it with Saudi Arabia for a man whose club's based on the earnings of shipyard workers for years and years and years and years, and yet he goes and finds a paradise island so he doesn't have to pay any bloody tax. Where's the morality in that, Bob? How you tell her? Why are you living where you're living? You're living where you're living because you want to get away with paying no tax. It's as simple as that. And there's a certain morality about that as well that some people don't like. As regards the other things about it, if I've heard him say once, I've heard him, Neil's the same, heard him say 100 times how he wouldn't be happy until he had one more seated stadium like than would have at St James's Park. Didn't happen, Bob. Didn't happen. Hope you've got that in your book as well. No, just a sad old git like me who's just trying to make something on the horizon with his own ideas about what things should be and what morality should be. Well, sorry, Bob, you've got it wrong, and Neil and Steve and yourself, Steve, have put it right. If morality is gone, it's gone over the pond. There's no doubt about that. Every time you pick up a piece of paper, there's American involvement and shady involvement, some of it. Like I joked about our new sponsors the other night being in New Jersey. Where did the mafia make their money? New Jersey, for God's sake. So, there's lots of things in football that are about... you can drag morality into it, but this bit about Saudi Arabia, it's getting old, it's getting tattered, and as I've said more than once on here, if we embrace rather than try and repudiate what's happening to her, then it'll come right. And as I've seen with our Neil in the time that he's been in the UAE, what difference 10 years have made? What a difference! What difference 10 years have made in Saudi Arabia. I was going to Saudi Arabia with the British Council to do some student recruitment, and they very kindly said that my Marjorie could go. And before we could go, Marjorie had to go to the university and have 2 weeks of education about what she could do and she couldn't do. Not to raise her foot, so her bare soul was pointing to the sky and people could see it, and always be 3 steps behind me. And if there's a bus from the airport, she was on the back and I was on the front. You don't know how his mom would react to that. But because we were trying to do something different, even she played the game. She played the game because we knew it was an opportunity to change, impress them. And I keep going back to this. When they get used to us and our style, and the chairman goes back to tell them how well he's treated here and all the rest of it, they'll all want to come. So Bob Murray saying all of that is yesterday's news, Bob, like you are, yesterday's news. As I say, just a silly old man like me trying to make a point.
Tell you where he did succeed. He did succeed in more empty seats.
Oh yes, yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, it was sometimes painful in the boardroom at Joker Park, I can tell you.
The rumours of Panda Pop and cheesy chips at the book launch have yet to be confirmed. It's now time for the ads. A big thanks to all our sponsors. Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website www.skipsandbins.com, easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. A big thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. You can order yours today by emailing info@mrvickies.co.uk or telephoning 01768 210 102 or go to the website mrvickies.co.uk. A big thanks as well to United Group Travel. They are a UK coach holiday firm based in Morpeth. For just £30 deposit, you can book a trip across the UK. There are no strangers on their buses, just friends you haven't met yet. They are taking bookings now for 2024 tours, and you can call them on 01670 632 460 or mobile 0791 666 4174 or 07957 141 654. Big thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the video side of things. And a big thanks as well to New Workwear. You can find them at newworkwear.com. Please subscribe to the channel. All you need to do is hit the subscribe button. It's free. Hit the thumb up under the video to like the video and click share to share to your other social media. We're also available as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and other podcast providers. If you want to help the channel financially, why not take out a one-off £25 membership? What do you get for your money? You get a scarf, you get a pen, you get a membership card, and a cup, and you get entry into the monthly draw. How do you do it? Go to nufcmatters.com. If you've got a smartphone, put your smartphone over this QR code, and it will take you straight there. We also support the food bank on this channel. How do we do it? We do it virtually. nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk is the website. If you want to make a virtual donation today, go to that website and you can top up what they collect at the food bank outside the ground. We always advertise events on this channel as well. If you've got an event to advertise which has got a Newcastle United theme, please let us know. An evening with Frank Clark and John Gibson takes place at the Irish Centre. Tickets are £15. nufcmatters.com for your tickets. The Tyne Theatre and Opera House are holding an event with Keegan, Beardsley and Waddle, the class of 84, 25th of January 2024. And you can book now 0844 249 1000. That's 0844 249 1000. If you go to nufcmatters.com as well, we've got a couple of raffles ongoing. The Alan Shearer signed ball raffle, £1 a ticket. And the Kieran Trippier picture, £1 a ticket for that as well. And once the tickets are sold, the draw will be done. We've also got some T-shirts, which you can buy. The latest one, the latest hot seller, is this one. Geordie's on tour. I've never seen a Mackham in Milan T-shirt with all of our Champions League fixtures on the back. Get yourself to nufcmatters.com. Buy one today. And don't forget the Northeast Brekkie Show, 7 till 9, Monday to Friday on tuneradio.co.uk. You can also get us on DAB Radio, smart speakers, app, and online. Just a reminder as well, Super Mac and Gibbo are back doing what they do best pre-match and post-match. They are at Louis' Liquor Store. Get yourself along there. Kids welcome, and there is food on as well. Always a good chat with those guys beforehand. Gibbo interviewing Super Mac tomorrow from 1 o'clock. And we've been asked as well by the Tyne Theatre to let you know that if you are intending to get VIP tickets for Keegan Waddle Beardsley next year, there is only 41 VIP tickets left. That is 4-1. So if you want one, get yourself online now and book your tickets or give them a ring at the box office. And NUFC Matters are proud to be involved in this. We are helping celebrate National Curry Week at Raval Restaurant, which is just up the Tyne Bridge on the Gateshead side, on the left-hand side. And they are helping a charity called Feeding Families. So with every tikka masala that is ordered next week, then they will donate the equivalent to that tikka masala, the price of that tikka masala, to feeding families. So they're trying to raise some money for the charity. And what you need to do is book up at the website, which is rivaluk.com. And if you mention NUFC Matters 2023, you will get a 20% discount off your curry as well, which is absolutely fantastic. And big shout out to Tyne Radio as well, who have got involved in this, and to Adam Pearson and Matty Renton from the Magpie channel as well, who've come on board to help this. It's a great initiative by Rival. So thank you for doing it. And just a shout out to Jake, who will be on the show tomorrow morning, something a little bit different. I helped Jake out last year. He didn't have the contact with any of these players. He said he wanted to do a book with his co-author, Alex Crook. So I put him in touch with quite a few people, including Rafa Benitez and a few of these players. And he's come up with this book, Newcastle United Match of My Life, which we're going to talk about tomorrow at 10 o'clock in the morning. So that's a nice little change, a nice pre-match show for you in the morning. So make sure you tune into that. Okay, as always, we have Tune Lookalike. Some really good ones this week, as always. Donald Trump in a toilet. Very good. Yeah, so a lot of effort gone into that. This was brilliant.
It is.
Mirdad Gadusi.
That's spooky, that.
Very good, isn't it? Very good. Not a winner, though. This one, Steve Wraith and Mitch. Let ourselves go a bit, apparently. And Gary Wilmot and Giovanni.
Wow. Yeah. See that.
This one, Martin Skirtle and Flukeman from the X-Files. I'll tell you what, which is which. Dracula and Dimitar Berbatov.
Yeah, there's always been that edge there, that.
Donkey and Harry Maguire. I like to check that in. We'll get it every week.
Poor donkey.
And this one from Iceman, his cousin Ralph Dog and me. Thanks, mate. And a lookalike for Friday.
That is good.
Not the winner, though. There's some better ones than that. Better ones than that. Like this one. Brian Johnson and Cliff Williams. It's Steve Hasty.
Which one?
Steve Hasty with AC/DC. Sutty, thanks, mate. He says, Steve Wraith's been on the steroid juice as he prepares for his role as wrestler JR Kratos. This guy, I know him from when I used to work on the doors. He used to come in the bars that I worked in. Somebody sent that in as an Andre lookalike, Toon Stato, which is quite good. And these Halloween masks are getting scarier, Steve Hasty.
Hi, thanks, Andy.
Alan Shearer says Darren.
Wow.
Very clever.
I mean,
I know where he's coming from on that one.
It's the hand up in the air, of course, yeah. Ugly Camel.
Hey.
Oh, dear.
Who's the bloke on the right?
Looks like he's like an older version of William Hartnell, and William Hartnell couldn't get any older. Jimmy Moore, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor and Green, and the Green Marjorie Taylor Green and the Ghost from Ghostbusters.
Yeah. Dear me.
Steve Hasty submitting one of himself.
I just knew it would. I thought I'll get in quick before anyone else does.
Rita, as usual, sends a few in. Paul Heckingbottom and Jim Rosenthal. Pretty good.
That's good, that.
Perry from Diversity and Hannibal.
Yes.
And Ibrahimovic and Christopher Lee.
Ooh, yeah.
And you can see they're gradually getting better. She kept the best to last. Sorry, Hasty.
Always lets ourselves down.
A couple of these, as usual. Simon Rudd, how does Steve Wraith get in the team photo every week? This guy, man, honestly, this guy. And keep seeing this lad in the team photos. He looks more and more like your mate, sorry, says Paul Ferguson. It does look like me. I mean, the guy must be sick. I hope he doesn't get any grief in the street.
Oh, the guy will be sick, guaranteed.
He will be. Jimmy with a late entry. Pep and some bloke on a place in the sun.
Yeah.
And last one, I promise, said Big Donald. The one next to Buffon is a Bollywood actor. Viewers will not be familiar with him. I don't know if that was a lookalike, Donald, but I put it in anyway. We have got close now to the top ones here. So here we are. Dustin Hoffman and Son from Spurs.
Got an edge of Jimmy Greaves, that Dustin Hoffman as well.
Certainly has, yeah.
Definitely the black and white.
My mind.
The black and white helps, doesn't it? Now, what was this, Mitch?
That
was this.
Yeah.
My kettle has turned into Dave Grohl, said Gary Thompson. Very good, that. If you can just see him in the bottom right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Mitch replied with this. Almost as good as the one that was withdrawn for sale for some reason. Classic. Alan McKenzie, Kieran Trippier and Steve McQueen.
That's good.
See that?
Yeah.
And this one from Al Walid, Turkish Steve Hasty.
Oh, dear me.
Al Walid, you are number 3. The top 2 coming up very soon. This was number 1, yeah. It is me, Mike Whistle. The top 2 are from the same person. Couldn't separate. Jacob, trainer guy in the team photo, and actor Dan Bird, who plays Pastor Robin Young Sheldon.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the winner is from Jacob as well. Thomas Suchek and Big Dan Byrne.
All right.
Yeah.
Very good, Jacob.
Oh,
Very good, Jacob. So well done. We're starting to get the hang of these lookalikes. They actually look like the people. So
thanks for 3 years.
Thanks for sending them in. Keep them coming, and we'll have more.
3 years and 20,000 dogs, Steve.
Yeah.
And cats.
And Rita still struggles with her dogs.
Get them sent in, folks. Thoughts from Spenny's. Spenny's put his back out as well, so hope he gets better this weekend. Thoughts about Castore and Villa trying to pull out of their deal. Interesting this. I mean, we've spoken many times about Castore on the show, and Sean says off topic, would Villa look like they're trying to get rid of Castore already? Something about the strips not looking good, and they've been too shiny, and it's not helping us play. It's a strange one, Mitch, but poor Castore. I mean, they must be sick of fielding complaints and bad publicity.
They've got all the hallmarks of the company that got too big too quick.
Mm-hmm.
You look at everything that they're involved in, the amount of teams they're doing, the amount of sports they're trying to cover. And they started, and pretty much still are, a dropshipping company, and they don't have the capacity to do it. Now, what's gone on with the Villa strips, it seems like they're just not, the sweat isn't evaporating from the material. But I then raised the question, why is the material on the Villa strips different to the other pro strips? Because it's obviously different to our pro strips. I would have thought the amount of effort our lads put in, if the shirt was going to get sweaty, I think ours would. But we don't seem to have that same problem. Is it off-putting? Well, it must be. I mean, I know professional footballers can be precious souls at times, but having a wet, clingy shirt that you've got to change at half time doesn't seem to be one of the bigger problems. But there does seem to be something about this year's shirt. When you look at it, it does look like some of them have had a bucket of water thrown over them by half time. That to me would suggest the material is not releasing the sweat the way it should. But again, why is that shirt a different type of quality or standard of material as the other pro shirts that say we have? Because I would have thought if it was a Castoria problem exclusively, it would be across all the Castoria products. You'd see the England cricketers complaining about it, and they're not. It really genuinely is an odd one. And there's other things about the drama that's being made out of it that is irking me a little bit, but we'll probably best not go there. I'll get myself into trouble. But if their one problem is we want to break this contract because our shirts look sweaty, it belies, the many other problems that many other clubs, and I Tory's all about it here. You speak to people from other clubs who have Custodial over here, and they all have the same kind of problems about quality control, things being missing, things being stuck on the wrong way around, stitching being poor quality, stitching not matching up, sides of the shirt not matching up, sleeves not matching the body of the shirt, etc., 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 etc. So I think. There's always been that issue there across the whole spectrum, but they just seem like now people are wanting to find a way out. People asking why didn't we just do it that way? Well, I think we do business the right way, and I think we always remember certain adages about you meet the same people going on your way down as you do on the way up. And I don't think we'd ever want to end a business relationship unhappily. Whereas other people seem very happy to drive cotton horses through contracts and things like that and end business relationships unhappily. And I don't think that's PIF's style, and I don't think that's our style. What Villa do, up to them. But it does seem an odd one that they seem to be the only ones making this very specific complaint when we aren't, Wolves aren't, other teams using Custodial aren't, other teams in other sports using Custodial aren't. And I would have thought it would be just as much of a problem for the lads playing rugby in Custodial shirts and lasses playing rugby in Custodial shirts, and the lads and lasses playing cricket in Custodial shirts, and I don't hear that same complaint. So whatever they've done, or whether it's it could be something bizarre, like the particular type of dye for the claret, is the problem. I mean, Steve probably knows more about colour chemistry than I do. You know, there's something odd about this, because you would have thought you'd hear the same complaints from other Custodial users, and we just aren't. Yes, we're hearing complaints about quality and badges and missing or being stuck on at 45 bloody degrees or what have you, but we're not hearing any shirts ready from anybody else.
Steve, to story again. I mean, Alan says after this season they go into the history books, because the contract will be terminated and we'll move on with Adidas. But does seem to be a lot of problems, doesn't there? Still.
Yeah, I think there is, and Mitch hit the nail on the head. A company that grew too big too quickly, a company that moved into an area that they thought would be quite simple, riding on the back of Sports Direct and Mike Ashley. You couldn't do anything wrong in terms of dealing with that company, because no matter how badly they treated the fans, you were never ever going to get into trouble with it. Getting into trouble about it. They had an online purchasing that was a nightmare. The quality finish told you that some of those shirts of ours were being manufactured in a variety of different factories. The stitching that was poorly done, hems that were on an angle, quality of the stitching on the collars, like Mitch says, the badges and that. The Villa one seems a strange one though. It's almost as though the fabric is a totally different fabric to everybody else's. So it's not it's holding the water. It's holding either sweat or weather. I'm not sure that Villa played in a rainstorm over the weekend, and that's when it occurred. I know there was a lot of bad weather down in London last week, a week before, and down in the Midlands. But whether or not it was that, but what was probably the bit you weren't going to say, Mitch, which I will say, was the story after seeing the state of the shirts and the way that they looked. It was immediately triggered by certain elements of the press that the WSL starts this weekend and Villa will be playing. Villa women, there's a big game on, and how are these women going to cope with a shirt that's almost a wet T-shirt? That's how the story broke that I saw, and straight away that was like a red flag that was being flown, or a claret flag. And from that moment onwards, it just seemed to get a momentum of its own. That we started to see various people in the media talking about it. Every newspaper had it on. And then right out of the blue, Villa suddenly announced, I think it was either late on yesterday or early this morning, that they were dropping Custodial. Custodial were gone. I haven't seen anything official. This was just, Villa are going to do this. Villa are going to do that. I don't think you can get out of a contract that quickly, that easily, to be perfectly honest. And I think Newcastle, you said Newcastle did things the right way. I'm sure Newcastle were desperately trying to get out of the contract with Castori, and it took an awful long time. The fact that Villa could do it over a 24-hour period surprises me, unless there was something in a contract that's completely broken in terms of what the contract said that they had to fulfill and what has ended up. I think there's something behind the scenes. There's something going on, and I think it did mushroom because of the WSL and the women's team. That was where the story broke, and people insinuating comments that of what the women were having to put up with or would have to put up with. And I think when you do that, I think that's when a company, that's when a football club has to be seen to be doing something. Villa couldn't have just turned around and said, well, we're looking into it and we'll have a solution by Christmas. We're working with the suppliers. They're going to have to do something. It'd be interesting to see what both the women's team and the men's team were at the weekend, because they'll have to come up with a quick solution. That's for certain. Whether or not it means they're wearing their away kit, it's possibly a different fabric, or whether they'll go back to last season's kit, who knows? But there's obviously going to have to be changes afoot, and it's going to have to be done very, very quickly. I wonder how much it's going to cost them in terms of if supporters ask for their shirts refunds and ask for whatever the new kit is as well. This is where it starts to mushroom and become a big commercial problem. But I think Castori also, what they did was they tried to go in a couple of directions as well. And one of the directions was they wanted to go into the high echelon market of clothing. The Andy Murray range isn't exactly cheap. What
about the Bob Murray range?
The Bob Murray range, that's Bobbins, that.
Can't get green ones. Can't get green ones.
Can't get green ones.
No, you can't get green ones. But then you've got, they're involved with F1. And I mean, F1 is the Formula One is a very, very, high-end brand. And, you can get Castori Red Bull shirts. You can get Castori McLaren shirts. And they're selling in the posher side of Phoenix as well. That's where they have a little corner of Phoenix where you can buy that sort of stuff. Online, they were a nightmare, weren't they? If you wanted to buy anything from them, I mean, how many people in America, for example, that we know, ended up getting that kit for nothing because they got a refund, and then a couple of days later it arrived. That tells you everything you need to know about a company who's just completely out of its depth.
Well, when I put my order in for the third shirt, and I bought a polo shirt as well, it took 8 weeks for it to arrive from launch day, which is a nonsense, really. That said, though, the polo shirt is phenomenal.
Yeah,
it's fantastic. It's not just good; it's the same. I was looking at, and there's an F1 store, the mall closest to me here, and the Castori Aston Martin stuff. They've got the full range of Aston Martin stuff in there, and it's the same quality as the high end Aston Martin polo. It's bloody lovely. It's great on, and it is. It's at Newcastle price. You're probably getting it cheap, but for every good thing like that, they'll do something like send a wool shirt out with a badge on upside down.
Yeah.
Or they'll send a Rangers fleece with a Newcastle zip on it. Or, and it's that level of really almost, we don't give a shit quality control. That's getting them into trouble.
Yeah.
But this thing with Villa still stands out for me as something quite unusual.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was interesting as well, Steve. I listened to you on your show this morning. And you were saying that, as Newcastle fans, 99 out of 100 thought the designs that Castori have produced over the last couple of shirt changes have been brilliant. This season, the designs are fantastic. So from a design perspective, they're getting everything right. The colours are great. The fabric seems to be something that's suddenly cropped up for Villa and for Villa alone. And that tells me that that's been manufactured somewhere totally different to wherever the other brand of kit was, whether they've done that on the cheap or they've done it because they've overstretched wherever the other factories have been where they're involved in, or whether they've just sort of gone out and said, we'll find manufacturers all over the place, and it just seems to be that. And it'd be interesting. Is it the players' kit only as well, or is it the fans' kit?
What I'd love to see now, seeing people in the chat talking about buying Snaids, go and buy 11 Villa Snaids and give them to the team and see what happens. And I bet it's better quality than the original.
Yeah, exactly.
No doubt about that at all. George, the Castoria thing, it just rolls on, doesn't it? But I think Mitch is right. It grew too quickly.
Well, that's right, and it has rolled on because some of that stuff's been good, but they've just let themselves down so badly. The other thing is that after the discussions about the Aston Villa women's team, I think the NUFC Matters and Steve Hasty probably doubled the gate tomorrow single-handedly.
That wasn't the intention, by the way.
Well, that's probably what will happen, though. Never mind. I'm digressing. They got into so much as well at the same time. I mean, I was amazed at how many of the cricket teams are Castorian, how many of this, that, and the others Castorian. No, it was a disaster waiting to happen, and unfortunately, it's caught up with them. The interesting thing about the fabric is that this fabric's manufactured in a particular way. Now, clearly, if they've got that one wrong, then gosh, there could be a queue at the Villa shop for their money back very soon by lots of people. So, good luck to them. It'll not do them any good, but not do the club any good either. No, it's a story. It's a story that's been brewing, and we've talked about it. Goodness knows for the last 12 months or more about what was happening to our shirts that were otherwise great, ending up with stitching that just was tucked. People were saying, well, they've missed the letter out. They hadn't missed the letter out. It was just all tucked in. It hadn't been pulled out properly on the machine. Simple quality control measures that could have put all that right just got missed. And once you miss them, you've had it. You only get one chance. Once it's out the door, your chance is gone. So yeah, no surprise. Just it's sad, really, because it doesn't do football any good, in my opinion, either.
It's not the first time, of course, that clubs have had problems with fabric. I mean, we go back to the ASICS days, and we had a fabric that as soon as you went near that somewhere static, that it just ping, ping, ping. We've had other tops where you couldn't wear it unless you had a t-shirt underneath. Otherwise, you were just itchy all the time. You go back to the I think it was the 1970 World Cup. Was it Umbro that brought out an AirTech shirt? And the idea was that because we're playing in the heat of Guadalajara and such like in Mexico, that they had this wonderful breathable kit. And I think very similar to what's happened with Villa, I think it suddenly realised that it wasn't breathable at all, And then you look back at the shirts that they wore in the '66 World Cup, and you remember that fantastic game against Argentina, and where Ray Wilson, wasn't it, I think, or George Cohen decided they were going to swap the shirts with an Argentinian player at the end of the game, and Alf Ramsey grabbed it and told him he couldn't, and next thing you know, the sleeve was about that long, wasn't it, because he was stretching it. I mean, this is one of the things. It probably. There's probably a combination of things with this particular Villa one, and some of it could be down to the fact that they just haven't done enough pre-tests on the material that they've chosen. They've chosen a particular weave of polyester, and it's just reacted. And I mean, it's all done with sublimation, and it should be, the ink should be fine, but something's gone wrong in that process, whether it's the selection of the material in the first place, or whether it's something that they've tried to do cleverly, perhaps even with a coating. They might have applied a coating on it. So
yeah, Paul, we did explain at the start of the show, you might have missed it. George is having some plumbing done, so that's why there's some strange noises. Okay, we've got 25 minutes to go in the show. Stick your fingers in your ears, because here comes that music. day I met where you meet somebody from Newcastle United, past or present, and well, Eleanor met me. Stephen submitted it as the day I met. Eleanor works at Specsavers, and I went for some new specs this week because it was that time to go get my eyes assessed. So I want to say a big thank you to Stephen Moore's partner, Eleanor. She did a great job. Eleanor, as soon as I get the email from Specsavers, I'll give you that review. I don't know how to do it, so maybe ask Stephen to send us a link or something. But you were great. Thank you for sorting us out. But that is this week's Day I Met. If you've got one, send it in to me, and I will feature it on the show. Okay, Newcastle United take on Burnley at home. Good old-fashioned 3:00 kick-off tomorrow. Tyne is going to give us the stats and the lowdown.
Hello. On the back of our record away win in the history of the club in the league, and after eliminating the European champions from the League Cup, what a week for Newcastle United. 4 wins in a row with clean sheets. We're very close to the achievement from last season when we did 6 in a row. 3 games just before the World Cup break and 3 games just after the World Cup break. When it comes to our opposition, Burnley, they have not beaten us at St. James's Park in the league since 1976. Actually, in the 9 games since then in the league, we have 5 wins and 4 defeats. When it comes to their new style of play, you might have noticed that they pass the ball a lot. Actually, in their last game against Manchester United, they registered close to 600 passes, which is their highest ever in a Premier League game, and they had their highest ball possession in their history in the league. That doesn't help them much so far with the points tally, because they have only 1 point after 5 games. Funnily enough, they have played only 1 game away from home, which they drew 1-1 at Forest, while they lost all their 4 home games against both Manchester clubs, Tottenham and Aston Villa. When it comes to Newcastle United, Kieran Trippier assisted 3 goals last week, and overall in 2023 he has assisted 6 headed goals, which is the record in the calendar year in England. The last player to do something similar was a certain Matt Ritchie between 2017 and 2019. Going back to last week, it was, as I mentioned, our record away win in the league and the second biggest away win for Newcastle in all competitions in the history of the club. The record is 9-0 against Southport back in 1932 in an FA Cup replay, which was played in Sheffield. Away the lads, and let's win a 4th game in a row.
Great stuff from Andre, and I am looking forward to going to Bulgaria. I'm going to head over there to meet the Bulgarian Supporters Club with Nobby Solana. We're going to go and do a talk in for Andre out there, all booked up, and looking forward to that towards Christmas time. So thanks for that, Andre. Okay, team news. Well, Harvey Barnes is out. He's going to be sidelined for several months with a foot injury. We went in depth about that last week with Neil. Yeah, it's quite an unusual one. It's just under the toe. And unfortunately for him, it means he's going to be out for 3 months, but no surgery. So, depending on whether he's a quick healer and depending on how quick he gets back into training will depend on when he is available. Joe Willock's still out, of course. He is not due back until probably the end of October, the start of November, Eddie said this morning. But Emil Kraft is starting to work on his match fitness, starting tonight, playing for the under-23s. There are doubts over Alexander Isak, Callum Wilson, Sven Botman. They were all having examinations today, and Eddie would rule the roost over them today. So we'll find out tomorrow who has been successful. But Dan Burn, he said, would be available for selection after overcoming a bout of sickness, as was Martin Dubravka. As for Burnley, well, Lyle Foster suspended. Ekdal, Goodmanson, Obafemi, Benson and Cherlanov are all on the injury list. Referee tomorrow is a new one. at St James's Park. Thomas Bramall from Manchester is going to be the whistler in the middle. He has taken charge of an under-21 game once for Newcastle, but this is the 33-year-old's first time taking charge of a Newcastle United game. VAR, as we know, which is often switched off, is Jared Gillette. Don't forget, there is real disruption tomorrow as ASLEF are on strike. And now there is a bus strike being called as well. Means that there'll be no Go Northeast buses running on Saturday. So if you're planning on getting to the ground, you may have to change your plans by bus. So, Mitch, here we go. Burnley at home. Is this going to be after the Lord Mayor's show, after the week that we have had, or is this going to be another comprehensive performance? I guess it comes down to who's available.
I don't care who's available, mate. You've got to look at the reality. The three teams that came up are currently in the bottom three. And out of a potential collective, I think it's 42 points. You've got three, one each. The gap between Premier League and Championship is getting wider. And they personify that at the moment. Burnley are an interesting one because at least they're having a go. They look like they're trying to play football. They want the ball. Whatever Sheffield United were doing at the weekend, that wasn't football. But between the three teams that came up, they're showing, like I say, I think it's something like 3 points out of 46, and they've conceded something like 48 goals between the three of them as well in those games. It's horrendous. And there's no reason why we can't come back to St James's Park with whatever 11 we put out, with an air of confidence, and at least come away expecting to take 3 points. Yes, they'll all break that duck at some stage, but it's time for us to stop being that team. We were the team that perennially fixed other people's problems. You've not had a win away from home in 6, it's all right. It's in James Park this weekend. You might nick it. Your striker's in a goal-scoring drought. Oh, don't worry, you're playing us next weekend. He'll probably come here and get one in off his arse, and it'll start a scoring run for him. I think the time for us to be everybody's patsy like that is gone. And I think mentally it's gone. And I think if we turn up in the way that we can, no matter which 11 Andy sends out, we should be able to see Burnley off. There's enough quality there. There's enough good relationships between the two clubs, not just because of Eddie Howe, but over the last couple of seasons. We've interacted very well with Burnley. I think didn't we do 2 behind closed doors friendlies with them last season where we played 2 different 11s? Yeah. And I think I think it's a club that we look at favourably, but we won't do them any favours. I would expect it to be a hard game. I would expect them to show some fight. I would certainly expect them to show some more fight than Sheffield United did in the second half at the weekend. Nice to see we're back at home at 3 o'clock on a Saturday for the first time, I think, since New Year.
Yeah.
At home, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Ridiculous. But again, that's the price of success. Everybody wants a piece of it, be that television companies or worldwide, etc., etc. So I think we'll go into it with the right mindset. We'll come out with it with the right result. That's my feeling on it. That isn't being arrogant. That's just saying if we put the right amount in, we should get the just rewards at the end.
Have you got the dice? Is it back off strike?
It's back off strike, yes. Well, after all of that, it says 0-0.
Smash that dice. If you watched last night's show, me, Malcolm and Gibbo all went for the same result, which is unheard of. We all predicted 3-0. So, Steve, the dice has gone 0-0. What about you, Steve? What are you saying?
I was going to say a 3-0 as well. It's going to be an interesting one, this, because just listening to the stats that Andre threw at us there, you know what 600, 700 passes in a game. I think that tells you that this isn't going to be the Burnley of old. This isn't going to be Burnley lobbing the ball into the box for Chris Wood to get his head on or Ashley Barnes to get their heads onto. This is a game where the ball's going to be played in front of our back four. It's going to be moved around. possibly at a slower pace than we've been used to. He's trying to bring in this sort of Man City mentality of keeping possession, and he's trying to convince everybody that he's going to be the new Pep Guardiola at some point in time. So he's getting his team to play that way. His team's playing totally different to the way, or appears in my book to be totally different to the fast and furious football that they played in the Championship, where they ran away with the league. Let's face it. I mean, they were scoring for fun. It's virtually the same squad. Is Craig Bellamy part of the makeup down at Burnley as well?
He is. He's part of the coaching staff. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, so that's going to be an interesting. We're going to see him screaming, facing up to Jason Tyndall on the touchline. These two could just keep everybody else occupied, give them a little box of their own. When he's just in the corner, and then they can just go hammering tongues while the rest of them keep out and just do their own little thing in the dugout. It's because of the style of football they play, that might give Eddie the opportunity to say, you know what, Dan hasn't been very well. I'll keep Dan out of it, and I'll still play Target as left back, or I'll give. This might be a great opportunity to give Hall another run out, especially when he only got half a game in midweek. He might decide to, let's play Trippier on the left and keep Livramento in. These are great options that he's got. If Botman's injured, but let's face it, none of us are going to be that concerned if Botman's not there and Lascelles comes in to replace him, because he again had a great game in midweek. So all of those little things are plus points, I suppose, as a coach, especially after your team's played so well in midweek, which was basically a second team. Let's face it. Everybody's made a big fuss, and I think somebody mentioned it in the column there. Everyone's made a big fuss of Man City playing that second team against us, especially the press, especially the TV, Sky, etc. But nobody made a mention of the number of changes that Eddie made to his team. People forget about that. Just because we had Isak in, just because we paid an awful lot of money for some of the lads that we brought in, all of a sudden they're not our second team at all. It was ridiculous. But I tell you what also is interesting, and we saw it again on in the second half. The way we've developed a different style to last season. We're getting to the byline an awful lot more and bringing and cutting the ball back to the midfielders, and that's where Longstaff got his goal. And that's because we've got a player like Anthony Gordon who's willing to take people on, drop a shoulder, but carry on to the byline. And we're leaving Trippier and his crosses for coming in and in for free kicks and stuff like that, rather than what was tending to happen is we're turning back on ourselves, or we're firing crosses in far too early. And these are the little tweaks I think that Eddie's made, and I'm going to say it because I have to say it. By going down to the byline and getting the crosses in, it shows you that what we're doing is. And I've never heard it for how many weeks now. We're not missing ASM, are we? We're not missing him at all. Not with Anthony Gordon playing the way that he is, and Barnes as well when he's getting the ball, dropping his shoulder and going past, but going past positively and getting the crosses into the box for incoming players and doing it in the right areas in the right space. So I think it's going to be a fascinating game. As I said right at the very beginning, my thing is I think we're looking at a 3-1 win. I just hope that we've got at least one of the two strikers available. I suspect both of them might.
Yeah, me too. 3-0 for me, 3-1 for Steve. The dice says 0-0. Mitch, I'll let you have a prediction because you usually get an opportunity to. What would your prediction be without the dice?
Without the dice, 2-0.
2-0. Okay, go. Comfortable 2-0 win, another clean sheet. George, what about you, mate?
4-0. Burnley, I mean, Eddie Howe's an ex-Burnley, isn't he?
Yes, he is. He went there for 18 months, and then he went back to Bournemouth.
That's
and they're just being relegated, George. And
that's right.
He said he learned a lot from that.
Oh yeah, well, and clearly he'll know a lot of the people there. I mean, they're not going to be strangers, are they? And he sets a lot of store on that sort of thing. I think Eddie Howe. knowing people and what they're like and all this sort of thing. So that's another one. The other mention about the other night that I didn't mention and I'm intended to do, if somebody had said to me at the beginning of the week that Dummett was going to be in centre back for again that match, I would just laughed in their face. He was brilliant. I mean, couldn't be better. Anyway, Burnley, a soft spot for Burnley because as a very raw 14-and-a-half-year-old, I remember my father allowing us to go, having been persuaded by the Burnley chief scout Charlie Ferguson, who had the good sense to bring a very large bottle of Lamb's Navy rum in his inside jacket pocket, inside of his overcoat pocket, and I was sent out for cigarettes. By the time I came back with the cigarettes, I was going to Burnley for a trial, where I was. When he came, I wasn't going anywhere near Burnley, but by then, of course, half the Lamb's Navy room was gone. So yeah, 2 weeks of my life, which I won't forget, was great. But I also remember. Maybe other people in my era will remember the Burnley chairman was a man called Bob Lord, and he was a pork butcher. Well, I can tell you every meal we had in that house at Burnley, which is not there anymore. They cleared most of them away because they developed the ground. Nearly every meal, the woman that owned it was the lady that run the house, seemed to manage to find a way of putting a Bob Lord pork pie on your plate. So it was good fun, and some great lads went there. You'll all remember Cess Irwin, Sunderland right back. Yeah. Cess was in that group of lads, and Brian Talbot, who became quite a good player. Charlie Appleby from South Shields, all became good players, and that's the difference with Burnley now. See, Burnley were the team that came to us and had 11 Geordies in it sometimes. We didn't have, but now that's disappeared since the scouting network disappeared. So there's lots of nice things to remember about being Burnley. But the one thing I want to remember tomorrow is because I'm intent on going, is a 4-0 win. And that'll do me nicely, thank you.
Okay, there was a couple of comments early on. I did save them. I'll just go through them. Jack Sparrow's team, he says, Burnley game tomorrow. I'll go Pope, Hall, Byrne, Shaw, Trippier, Tonali, Miley, Joelinton, Anderson, Gordon and Miggy. A lot of it depends on who's available. Lots of questions coming in. Jersey Mag, would you play Livramento and Trippier at full back at the weekend? And we need to talk about Isak and Wilson, who starts tomorrow, says he. And again, we need to wait and find out what the injury situation is. And do you think Hall and Miley will get starts against Burnley? I will talk about Hall because Barry Hogan asked a question. What do you guys think of Hall? He was getting slated even though Howe asked him to play in a position other than left back. He played in 3 positions, Barry, in that first half. Why are our fans become so slating of the players? We always need a scapegoat, Neil. Unfortunately, it's human nature, and it's what football fans do. You always find somebody who wasn't quite up to scratch. We started the show talking about Tonali. We're ending the show talking about Hall. He's a young lad. He's come with a lot of expectation, but he was asked to play 3 positions, and I thought he did well.
It often seems to be left backs as well.
It does,
for some reason. But no, it's really harsh. But I think that's symptomatic of where we're at the moment in terms of a lot of people seem to want everything yesterday. We're not prepared to be patient, and we need to be patient. We need to be patient because these players potentially could play 60-odd games this season, and they'll all get their chances, and they'll all do some valuable minutes to keep minutes in the legs of other players. I still don't get the obsession fueled by Gareth Southgate about playing Trippier at left back and Livramento at right full back. Tino had a fantastic game and was rightly man of the match on Wednesday. But Trippier's a right back, and I don't want Trippier at left back. He's wasted at left back. I'm sure between Byrne, Target and Hall, we'll have a better options at left back with left foots than changing the entire balance of the team by shifting Trippier across the left full back. That's just my opinion. I get why other people see it a different way. I just think it leaves us massively unbalanced. And Hall, everybody wants him to start, and then when he does start, he gets a battering. You cannot win.
Steve?
I thought the lad had a good first half. I thought, at one point he's playing left back, and he was playing left side of midfield, and he was playing centre midfield. You're dead right, Steve. And I thought that in each area he did really well. People will latch on to maybe one or two little snippets of a game of a 45 minutes. The back pass, for example, that could have gone anywhere. It just so happened that it was just an overhit pass. The number of times that I don't think he was more that he was exposed, but I thought at times, and I'm being hypercritical here, but there were times in that game where I thought, you know what, Target's playing passes to this lad that are making the lad look poor. It was as though normally you get that impression that players are working alongside and doing. But there were times some of the passes coming in thinking, are you trying to get us to show that I think this kid's not very good because some of the passes you're playing to him, they're very difficult. It did go through my mind at one particular time. And I thought maybe I'm being a little bit harsh on Matt Target there. But it did come over as that. It did. I did view it that way anyway. But no, I thought that Hall did really good. And just a quickly on what George was saying earlier, there was a big connection with Burnley and Wallsend, wasn't there, George?
Oh yes,
It was Ray Hankin at school who was from the Buddle, who ended up going down to Burnley in the early 70s. And there was quite a few, if I remember right, quite a few Burnley scouts down in the Wallsend and Shields area.
Burnley chief scout Charlie Ferguson, the Scotsman, lived in North Shields.
Yeah, exactly.
In fact, he was Burnley's chief scout. Didn't matter where he lived, but he lived in North Shields.
Yeah.
So he was right in the thick of it with all the boys' club and people like that. So yes, there was a huge Wallsend connection, but the Northeast connection was just vast. As I say, if you go back to some of those are the days I've done with Steve, because some of the Burnley 11s had twice the number of Geordies in them than our team did.
Exactly.
And that wasn't unusual. And Laurel went on to be very good. Ralph Coates, Billy Poynton, all played for England. They didn't just play for Burnley.
Waldron as well, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
What was also quite interesting at Wallsend when I was a kid was that Burnley was quite a lot of the lads in Wallsend's second team. I think that was because of the fact that there were scouts in Wallsend, and I think they were always trying to push it through when you were at the boys' club going, oh, yeah, I support Burnley as well. As a young sort of 8, 9, 10, 11-year-old. But there was that interest.
Definitely.
I think when you had someone from Wallsend who then went to Burnley and made it into the first team, that meant that the youngsters in Wallsend were like, wow, if he can do it, I might be in with a chance as well, So it was all fascinating in those days because I think it's different now with the academies and stuff like that, But even as an 11-year-old, there were kids, who wanted to be professional footballers who were looking at people at the schools just in that area and thinking, maybe if he can do it, so can I.
Yeah, my experience at Burnley finished, of course, with Charlie Ferguson and the manager Brown put him on the train back home and saying, well, you'll all get letters about what's happening, etc. Well, we didn't all get letters because on the Monday, Brown was manager of Sunderland and Charlie Ferguson was chief scout at Sunderland. that was the end of that. And the only person I know that got a letter was Billy Sesserwin for Sunderland, not for Burnley.
You didn't want a letter, George, not by then.
Well, yeah.
Well, lads, the clock has beaten us. It's been a great show as always. Benny, I will give this a mention. Yes, I have seen Minty play, and he does look a real player. I tell you what, we've done well in recruiting him. I think he'll be fast tracked at some point back to Newcastle. Not this season, but I genuinely think we will see him in a black and white shirt sooner rather than later. Great show again, guys. Thank you, Broken Flask. Over 490 watching tonight live at any one time. As always, we don't take it for granted. Thank you very much for watching.
Thank you.
Much appreciated. And don't forget, I am back 10 o'clock in the morning with Jake talking about his new book, which could be a nice little stocking filler for you all for Christmas. And 8 o'clock tonight, I'm doing an interview with Steve Tully. It's already pre-recorded about his book of slang. So jump in on that at 8 o'clock if you are interested. But for now, thanks to the moderators. Thanks to everybody for watching. Thanks to the plumbers for keeping the noise down at George's. And thanks to Mitch, to Steve, and to George. Take care. Have a great weekend. Away the lads.
Yep. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow, George.
Yeah.